reveal that they are the new champions here in Oceania, as Direwolves will represent the OPL at MSI 2017.
We got here.
Медведи из Virtus Pro, чемпионы СНГ, впервые для организации.
Вы думаете, это будет легко?
Gaming, 8 títulos, 8 veces campeones de Latinoamérica Norte.
Somos los mejores en nuestra región.
นี่ครับผมนะแชมเปี้ยนของเราในสปริงซีซั่นนี้นะครับกาลิน่าพรีเมียร์ลีก 2017
Nhưng đối với chúng tôi
この LJL2017 スプリングスピリット
まだまだ足りない
A Red é campeã do primeiro split do CBLOL.
É hora de botar para respeitar.
Supermassive'den çok iddia edici ve 3. oyun izledik. 4. oyunda yine ilk 2 oyunu benzetmeyen
Ama sadece biri hükmedebilir.
Welcome everyone to the 2017 MSI play-in stage. There are 3 more spaces up for grabs at the MSI group stage, and we've got 10 different regions looking to make their claim. You're getting a look at the Estúdios Quanta in Sao Paulo, Brazil, where the crowd is absolutely electric, which is expected of any Brazilian crowd. The Southern Hemisphere plays host to this tournament this year. I'm James Dash Patterson. Joining me on the analyst desk today are Andrew Vedius Day and Mark Zimmerman. Gentlemen, how we doing?
I'm doing well. I had a breakfast burrito this morning, and it was wonderful.
Welcome to North America.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions. Like, do you like the desk more? How does all of it compare? I mean,
well,
we stand here a little closer together.
Yeah, it's very intimate. That's lovely. You guys have a very nice space here. You have a giant TV, which is cool.
And we're going to utilize that to break down this tournament.
The only problem is we have James. That's like the one thing you kind of have to deal with.
He's not as blonde
Day 1 of MSI, you're going to start throwing shade, Mark?
I haven't seen you in a little bit.
Come on, man, we got 4 days of this.
You know I missed you.
We got 4 days of this.
Don't
start with me now. All right, let's begin with a review of the play-in stage and what teams will have to do to make it to the MSI group stage. Round 1 of play-ins begin today with our 8 teams sorted into 2 groups. Group A consists of CBLOL's Red Canids, Oceania's Direwolves, Turkey's Supermassive, and hailing from Japan, we have Rampage. With Group B composed of Russia's Virtus Pro, LLN's Lion Gaming, Vietnam's Gigabyte Marines, and CLS's Azurus Gaming. After a double round robin of best-of-ones, the winner of each group will promote to round 2 of the play-in stage, where they will be randomly assigned against NA's TSM or LMS's Flash Wolves. After winning a best-of-5 against their opponents, winners from round 2 move into the group stage, with the losers moving on to round 3. Round 3 pits the losers of those matches in a final best-of-5, with the winner claiming the last spot in the MSI group stage. Now, that was a lot of information to absorb, but I'm going to turn to you two to give us a little insight on these teams. Right on the outset, a lot of people have been looking at Group A as the stronger of the 2 groups.
It certainly seems that way, just because of the pedigree that you have in some of the players. Like Red Canids, they're very well known internationally. You also have Supermassive debuting at MSI last split, having a reasonable amount of success, being able to take down COG. So I feel like that just when you look at the group as a whole, there are a lot of standout individual performers that people or analysts are expected highly from.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely the big thing because when you're playing in these kind of games, it's a lot about like the star players who's going to make the big play. They're going to be a lot scrappier than a lot of the games you're used to seeing, and if you're able to individually outplay someone, that's a big opening for your team.
Right, and then you talk about international experience, you know, and acclaim and expectation for each of these teams, and it varies across the board. If we get more specifically into the teams themselves, let's start with Red Canids, the hometown favorites here from Brazil. Crazy aggressive team.
Yeah, these guys like to fight. They like to build their leads in the early game by finding these picks, forcing these snowballs, and utilizing the early game powerhouse of champions like Elise and Lee Sin from their jungler to really net themselves some early leads and run away with the game.
And I really like the comps, like you said, the pick focus that you see. A lot of Ahri, a lot of Syndra, a lot of Elise, playing things like Thresh, and then usually tanks in the top lane. I like their team comps a lot, and they go for this kind of group up and try and catch people out.
Yeah, having upset Cade Stars there in the finals, now representing Brazil. They'll be in the first match of the day. Let's talk about some other teams, perhaps one that might match their aggression in the Direwolves. And these guys have no shortage of confidence to go along with their aggression.
I cannot wait to see the Direwolves play because there is so much enthusiasm from the team.
That's a good word for it. Yeah, that's a good word for it.
Polite, right?
Confidence, overconfidence, enthusiasm.
But it's the fact that when you look historically at Oceania's performance, you'd say, well, okay, maybe you're being a little overconfident, but there's a lot of pressure on these guys from the organization, from the support that they have behind them. There are some level of expectations, not only from their region, but from the support that they have from the organization in order for them to perform.
Say a fair amount of investment into the teams themselves, and they've been very outspoken, saying that they're only afraid of the Koreans, and yet if they're going to face the Koreans, that's many days, if not weeks, away from now.
At least 3 rounds of this tournament to go. That's not going to be until the actual MSI play stage, so they got a long play to go. I hope they're not looking past their actual opponents right now in Group A.
Exactly. 2 more in Group A. First up, Supermassive. A lot of people will remember them from last year's MSI performance. Dumbledoge and the rest of the crew. First blooding Faker here. Who could forget?
Yeah, and I think Dumbledoge is a good guy to point out because we're in a meta where a lot of people are talking about how hard it is to shine with playing Lulu and Karma so much, but he was able to pick up the MVP in the finals of the series that they won to get here, and I think that's a huge thing to have a playmaker at the support position, and especially with some of the changes that we might be talking about in a little bit, I think that's going to be very good for him.
Yeah, we'll get into patch stuff in just a moment and how it might affect all of these teams, but to close out Group A, Rampage, our team representing the LJL from Japan.
And this is my dark horse of the group. I know that it's Mark Z's as well.
Stop stealing my dark horse.
Hey, it wasn't stolen. I planned this well in advance. These guys are a really exciting team to watch, largely because of their jungler, Tussle. This guy loves to make plays. It can not only be super hyper-aggressive in the early game, but also knows how to team fight, knows how to catch his opponents off guard, and I remember his Lee Sin from the International Wildcard Qualifiers. This guy just performed above and beyond, and now that they've upgraded their mid and AD carry from previous roster iterations, I am really excited to see what this team can pull out.
And the thing I liked about them a lot was when I was watching all the teams' finals, I felt like they were playing a lot more controlled style that you'd like to see out of some of the more major regions, and they were using their champions for going for team-oriented plays versus a lot of skirmishing that you tend to see in some of the other teams. And I think that's something that they might have an advantage over when you're playing so many teams, having like a unique, controlled style where you're not going to get totally crazy every single game. It's going to help them a lot.
Right, Tussle feels reminiscent of someone like Karsa. In the past, we've looked at the Flash Wolves and said that's one of the playmakers on the team. Along with Maple, you're looking for him to really get the team going. And if Rampage is going to have a shot at qualifying out of this group, it could be off of his back.
And remember that this guy did come in from Korea. He joined the team very early on, back in like 2015. He's been with the organization for a very long time. And the whole idea of this roster is to enable him to succeed, him along with Dara. So these guys, they're not just some random Korean imports that join the team hoping that this Korean success can thrive. They are actually superstar talents that have built with this team, and I'm expecting a lot from them.
So you guys talk about your dark horse, and of course, with all these teams kind of coming in from different regions and having not played against each other, who's your front runner in Group A?
I think it has to be the Red Canids. I think you talk about Brazil being one of the best regions generally in terms of the ones not playing in the major regions. They always have a good performance, and the way that they got here I think was very impressive as well when they 3-1 Cade Stars and finally kind of upsetting them as the #1 team in Brazil.
Yeah, and we also have the superstars, right? Players like BRTT, everyone's excited to see. Tokka is a bit of a legendary mid laner in the CBLOL. I think there are a lot of high expectations for him, and I think that just across the board, when you look at the individuals on this lineup, you just expect them to be slightly stronger than some of the competition that they have in Group A.
Absolutely. We do have to keep in mind that these players are also dealing with a patch change. 7.8 to 7, or 7.7 to 7.8 is what we've landed on here. Primarily, the big change is that Galio has been introduced to the pool, along with some minor nerfs and buffs to meta champions.
Right, so obviously with Galio, he's a champion that when he came out was kind of broken. Everyone was very upset about that, and he was being played in 4 different positions because everyone just knew he was good, not exactly sure how to use him. Kind of been figured out a little bit more now, and he often requires some kind of setup. So you see people running Camille with it or an Amumu or something to give him that kind of free ultimate onto a team fight. But even with that said, a lot of those things are kind of dropping off in meta. They're not super strong right now, so it might be hard to really fit him into a team comp.
The big thing for me is the ability to coordinate with him. I think it requires a lot of skill and communication in order to properly utilize his kit. But also, like, I think he's very telegraphed as well. A lot of his plays seem very obvious to read, so there's a lot of room for outplay. So I think if a team is going to bring it out, they will have definitely spent a lot of time investing.
I was going to say, it's going to be a matter of practice, how much time those teams have put into the champion. Let's look at some of these nerfs and buffs. As was mentioned, a lot of them are hitting already meta champions in very minor ways, right? We've got, small nerfs to Malzahar, Graves, Rengar, the like, which could make that jungle pool very interesting. So to your point around the kind of style that Red Canids plays with the Elise loving to get ahead in that fashion, reduced MR on the Graves could make her a stronger pick.
Right, and I think it's a little scary for some of the other teams that rely a lot on their jungler to make stuff happen, like Tussle, like Fire. These guys are very aggressive, and then you're going to lose out on power picks like a Rengar, like a Graves. I mean, Lee is still good, Elise, but then you start seeing maybe Ivern become one of the best junglers, which I don't think is exactly the style they're looking for.
For me, I'm really keeping my eyes on this guy right here, casting very small buffs coming in on 7.7, but the changes that they have made have really made his laning phase a lot stronger, and when you look at some of the mid laners that we have here in the play-ins who like these split pushes, who like these assassins, he's going to be one of the big power picks that people are going to look towards.
And then, of course, the Bard. That's the last thing we want to hit. As was mentioned with Dumbledore, one of his primary picks, always has been a favorite for him. Of course, there are other Bard players in the tournament itself, but kind of maybe opening up that roaming potential for supports could really make for some interesting games, especially given that we have best of ones, and it's not best of 5.
Right, I mean, that's the big thing, is that you can do some crazy stuff with Bard. We've seen some insane level 1 First Bloods if you take your E right away and start getting in through the back line, through these weird paths that don't really exist, the roaming that comes in with it. If it's going to be a scrappy game, Bard is a great champion for being able to join in fights faster than a lot of other champions.
Yeah, so then let's talk about also, too, this best-of-1 format, right, and how it differs from, say, the group stage when you're playing in those best-of-5s, and you kind of have the option or the ability to drop a game and readjust. Here, every game matters that much more, reminiscent of the group stages for Worlds, and so it's going to put that much more importance on the strategy and the champion picks and how they affect the game.
And I think that's a big thing when you talk about how a level 1 in a best-of-5, if you do something kind of cheesy, it can get you an advantage. It's worth going for, but it's not going to be the thing that really gets you out of that whole situation. Whereas that can matter a lot in best-of-1 kind of group stage, where if you pick up 1 extra win, that might be all you need. And then there's some crazy champ picks as well. We've seen some support Camille, some support brands by some of these teams, so you might see some crazy stuff today.
But what I'm most excited for is the conflict of styles that we're likely going to see, because you have so many different regions who have so many different metas where some teams will prioritize certain champions over others. You have certain teams who just focus on things like aggressive playstyles, passive playstyles. There are going to be all these different variations, and my biggest wonder is whether or not teams are just going to stick to comfort, or whether or not they're going to try and play to their opponent, and whatever is going to succeed the best.
Minutes away from finding out. Now, taking to the stage today are the members of Group A for their first round robin. That means every team in the group will play 3 games today, giving us 6 games total. It all starts with Brazil's Red Canids taking on OPL's Dire Wolves, followed by TCL's Supermassive against Japan's Rampage. During MSI only, you can unlock the 2017 MSI Conqueror Karma bundle. With the bundle, you unlock the commemorative ward skin, plus a border and an icon, and that's exclusive to MSI 2017, with 25% of all purchases being added to the MSI prize pool. Conqueror Karma is on sale now, so make sure to pick her up anytime between now and May 24th before she goes back into the Legacy Vault. It's time now, though, to send it over to our casters to get us into the first game of the day.
Thank you very much, Dash.